What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Rock and Roll Gypsy Diaries. And here with me today is my good friend for the last 10 or so years, Rocky Shades, the godfather of UK Glam, lead singer for Wrathchild UK, Wild Side Riot, and Rocky Shades Wrathchild. How are you, my friend?
I'm all right.
Tell us about the beginning for all my viewers here. What was it like growing up? What made you want to become a singer in a rock band? And what were some of your first bands?
Well, typical English person. We were raised on what's now considered classic bands. Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin. So obviously, before we even discovered anything that was wearing makeup and glitter and stuff, we were just into. I might say we in the loosest sense, probably me in general. I was into front people, front men. So I like a person that could sing and command a crowd. And then in between getting into the classic sort of rock, I discovered our glam, Sweet, Slade, T-Rex, Bowie, all the subsidiaries. And all of a sudden there was something more than music. There was an image. There was something that looked good on stage. Because up until this point, bands just looked pretty dull and samey. There was no differentiation. And I suppose the thing that changed everybody's lives, and I don't care how many times this is said, when Kiss came along, they really pushed the envelope to the limit. Bands had to compete with Kiss.
Same thing. I think Paul Stanley said in the early 70s, rock bands looked like someone that they look like, a group of people you could see that were waiting for a bus.
Yeah.
No.
The worst thing about going to a gig in that particular time was the bands didn't separate themselves from the fans. There was no differentiation. The guy you were stood next to in the queue to get into the venue looked like the guy that was up there on stage, and that was a no-no. Now, what people don't know is before I even discovered Kiss, I started toying with a concept in my mind, and I could see why Kiss did what they did, and I made a band up that was how my twisted mind perceived. And I remember calling it Nightmare. The band was called Nightmare. And I drew crazy makeup and very over-the-top clothes. And then Kiss came along, and I thought, oh, my God, I've just invented Kiss without even knowing. But my characters didn't have any characters. There wasn't the spaceman, the star child, the cat. My characters were just weird. They just embodied the sort of genre I was trying to create. Glitter, platforms, bright colors, massive hair, and I drew all this. I remember painting it because I invented a couple of album covers from this band, this Nightmare. And I remember painting the covers and putting all the makeup on. And then suddenly I'm at school and a guy comes in and says, have you seen this band? And it was the Destroyer album. And I'm looking at Kiss and I'm thinking, that's so uncanny. But it's back to that thing we said before about who does it first with the right PR and the right pictures. They get the deal. I invented it in my head first, but they came along and put it into reality. Mine was just a pipe dream.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. I had no idea about putting it together as a band. It was just this make-believe idea that was just sketched in a book.
Well, then you knew that Kiss was the perfect band for you if they were that damn close to the made-up band of your fantasies.
I followed them from that point onwards. And
I mean, anybody
I
who
remember that.
watches this knows that they're a big part of my life too. And whether or not, whatever you want to say, they ended up becoming the Beatles of the 70s and are still resonating to this day. Fuck the
I mean,
haters, we won.
they've admitted themselves. They've admitted themselves that they wanted to be the Beatles plus.
And
You
they
know,
kind
they
of were.
wanted, and it worked. They wanted, like a lot of people have said, like, oh, they've tried to be the Beatles, they've tried to be. They've totally admitted to what they were doing. You know, they wanted to be the most outrageous band at that time
And they were
on the budget
influenced
that
by
they
all those
got.
guys that you mentioned. Sweet, Slade, like Paul Stanley straight up said he was a complete Anglophile. He was into
Yeah.
everything that was English at the time. You know, he would get the
And he
imported
also
melody
mentioned
makers.
a lot about Humble Pie.
Yeah,
He was influenced a lot by Humble Pie.
and Noddy Holder.
Yeah, I mean, Noddy and Dave. I mean, I spoke to Noddy about it ages ago now. He just thought it was really funny that a band that turned out to be as huge as Kiss started off life following this little band of Wolverhampton-based crazies.
Yeah.
But it took a long time to admit that that was their connection. They shied away from it for so long, and then eventually they decided, no, it's about time we owned up here. You know, the platforms, the outrageous clothes. We were copying some of that British glam.
Well, I think that part of the problem was the mystique that they had to keep for so long. And then by the time the 80s happened, everything had changed where it wouldn't have really have mattered if they had said, oh yeah, we were influenced by Sweet, you know.
That's right.
You know what I
But I
mean?
mean, for a band to keep that mystique going for as long as they did, you've got to pat them on the back seriously.
Yeah,
Because I
I
mean,
mean, even though you didn't have
to
the
actually
internet,
appear,
like,
I mean, they go to airports and they put the makeup on and they take the makeup off and they put the
yeah,
makeup on to go through passport control.
yeah,
I mean, whoa.
they had to do that in Japan.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, like
Once I got the war paint on, it's on, and that's it. It's on for about 3 days. I ended up looking like Alice Cooper at the end of it.
So you take all this
Yeah.
imagination together, and you know this explains Wrathchild later on, which we'll get to. But so you were influenced by Kiss, and you were influenced by the punk that was going around at the time, right?
Now the punk, right? That's the tail end to what we were just saying. So we're at a point now. This is probably about mid-70s,
Well, Destroyer was
and
76.
I've been following the glam bands since about 71 when I was 11, and Kiss came along. I got into the Destroyer album and then bought everything that they got in my local WH Smiths, but I had to pay import prices, so that was like scary money back then. But I managed to get Dressed to Kill, Hotter Than Hell, and the first Kiss album, and Kiss Alive 1. That was like my baptism by fire of Kiss. So the next stage was to where do you take music now? I mean, I'm still not a singer at this point. It's like, you know, we've got Kiss. Where can you possibly take this now? There's nothing left to do. You know, there's this band that have got all this going on stage. They've got some fantastic music. Where's it going to go? So
isn't it funny how they created the modern standard for concerts pretty much everywhere?
Yeah. And I mean, they created value for money.
Oh yeah.
When you pay to get in to see Kiss, you get every single penny's worth. You know, how many times have you got in to see a band and thought, how much should I pay to see this again? You know what I mean? It's like, really, you actually don't even look like you want to be there. I've been at some of these nostalgia concerts, these people that have come back and supposedly treading the boards again, and they actually look like it's sort of like, oh God, we've only got another 20 minutes to go, and then we can get back to our normal lives. And I'm thinking, why do it? Now at this point, all I'm doing is I'm flying the flag for Kiss going to parties like I have been doing. And then one day I'm at a party and I'm singing along to something or other. I can't remember what it was. And a couple of girls that I was with turned around and said, you've got a really good voice. Why don't you join a band? And I'm thinking, not a bad idea, but I want to be in a band like Kiss. And that's not going to happen, because how do you find that many like-minded crazies that will dress up that stupid, at the same time, they've got to be good musicians as well. It's no good just looking crazy. So I thought, yeah, okay. So I started getting into bands. I got into the hoi polloi, and I was gradually working on my character. He wasn't very glam in the early days. So when people dredge all these early photos up and say, see, he wasn't always glam, I'm the first to say, well, neither was Dee Snider. When you look at the Twisted Sister film, you look how he looked in the early days. Even he would say he looks, well, scary.
Yeah.
So we evolved into the band that was to become Wrathchild. I learnt my craft with hoi polloi. It became Titan. Songwriting got better. The presentation on stage got better. My confidence got better, because I remember my very first hoi polloi gig, I couldn't look at the audience. My eyes never left the floor. Now, people looking at me these days would say, like, Rocky Shades, nervous, really? And like, yeah, hold my hands up. I was that nervous. I was like this. I sang the whole show looking at the floor. It's so funny now, because I could take on the world and not give a toss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So once we got a band that was going that way, what was left was just develop it, basically. So at this point, I'm still into all the classic bands. I'm still into the things that would forge that genre to the point that it did.
Yeah.
But something else comes along. I like heavy metal. I'm a big Judas Priest fan. So again, in the twisted mind, I'm thinking, can we marry up this heavier sound with the glossy, flossy image that we created? Answer, hell yeah. Yeah, we fucking can, and did. And I remember as early as 1980, we coined the phrase glam metal, not hair metal.
Yeah.
Americans seem to think that hair metal was invented around about 1986. I think hair metal and glam metal run on similar tracks. And we simply just called it glam metal because we look glam, but we like metal.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. Simple as that.
I mean, we'll get into the production and it sucks, but I mean, Stack Attack is straight up, exciter drum beat there. And, there's a lot of heavy metalisms and a lot of punkiness to it as well. Like there's definitely. Well,
I was influenced by punk, but didn't sing in that snarly, punky fashion. I sang in a sarcastic, snarly fashion. It was a sort of arrogance, but not an arsehole arrogance. It was sort of like, I'm not trying to preach at you. I'm not trying to tell you what political party to go for. I'm not going to tell you to upstage and create a revolution. What I'm trying to say is, come on, wake up. There's more to you than this. Yeah. And I think that's what we captured. We captured that sort of look. Now, bear in mind, the priestisms that seem to run through Stack Attack is due to the fact that Lance, the guitarist, started off life in a band that was very priestess. It was a band called Medusa, and the lead singer went on to join Grim Reaper.
Oh, wow. Steve Grimmett?
Yeah, Steve went on to make Grim Reaper.
I'm a huge.
That was the band Lance cut his teeth on, and that was very Judas Priest-esque.
That's
And
fucking cool.
oh yeah, I told you that there's so many cool elements to our band, and that's why the underlying glam thing always had that metal edge. Now, if you'd have heard the tracks that we were working on for the fourth album that never came about, this was the holy grail I was looking for in the tapes and couldn't find. The 10-track RCA demo we did, you would hear real serious metal cutting through the glam sleaze. Wow. It was getting to the point where we were really
cooking,
bitching. Yeah, really firing those bullets. And I couldn't find that bloody tape anywhere. 10-track demo is the only thing I've not owned of ours all throughout our history.
Yeah, that's.
I owned it once, but I think, idiot that I am, I might have put it on the back of a tape, not labeled it, which is something I do regularly. I don't label CDs, I don't label video boxes, and I end up like not knowing what the hell's in them. And I may have actually taped over it, so I may have done the worst. It's sort of like turning the Holy Grail into an ornament that sits on your shelf. I'm saying, it's like, oh, that's a lovely little ornament. Yeah, it used to be the Holy Grail. Sorry, yeah.
I fucked it up.
All these people that have been protecting it for hundreds of years.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Very Monty Python there.
Or finding pieces of the actual cross and building a shed out of it, that sort of thing.
Come see the shed made from the Messiah.
Oh no, there was a hole in my shed and I used this wood. I didn't know where it come from.
Oh man,
you know where I'm coming from. Next.
So obviously through Hoi Polloi Titan, you come to Wrathchild. So you guys just, how did that happen? Like that transition?
Right. Before Wrathchild happened, there was a band that Phil Bokins, who went on to play in Persian Risk,
yep,
and was the original guitarist of Wrathchild for 2 years. He was our guitarist from 80 to 81, and then Bill Ward stole him and took him to America.
Yeah, I did an interview with him years ago on a blog that I can't find anymore, where he went through all there, and it's a shame because there was a lot there.
Yeah, it was very interesting, and
because I never heard
our original version of the
band before like that, you know.
Well, I thought our original guitarist was taking Wrathchild in a completely different direction to what it actually sort of came into.
He only played on the Metal Mascara demo, didn't he? Or did he play on Stack Heel Strike?
No, he played on Classical Mayhem.
Okay.
The tracks he played on Classical Mayhem was Innocent, Shotgun, Stay Cool, and Going to America.
Okay.
Which is quite ironic because we kept singing about this Going to America, and that particular track reminded me of the Def Leppard that evolved from the High and Dry album. In between High and Dry and Pyromania, that's where we were at the time.
Oh wow.
But I wasn't really into that sort of flossy. I was into the more aggressive, angry stuff. So we became the glam metal rather than the fluffy metal. So we lost the new wave of British heavy metal tag when we moved into heavier territory.
That's interesting, because Phil Lewis and Girl was a glam band that was lumped into the new album thing.
Yeah, Girl was an unusual band. I thought they were amazing. But they should never have been called new wave of British heavy metal because they were beyond that classification. They deserved a space of their own.
When I interviewed Phil Lewis when The Devil You Know came out, I asked him about that. And he said they'd have us on the bill with Saxon or Diamond Head, and they didn't want us there, and we didn't want to play for them because,
That's right.
you know,
And then they got to support Kiss.
yeah.
The very first time I saw Kiss in London, which was 1980, Girl was the support band.
Oh wow! So you saw him on the Unmasked tour.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Lucky
It was the
bastard.
Unmasked tour.
You saw Eric
And
Carr in makeup.
I think it was one of the last shows I ever saw freely in, which is a shame. Because I know he lasted another couple of years, but I didn't see him then until 83. And Vinnie Vincent had taken over by that point.
Yeah.
But so now we've got Phil and the original bass player. They formed a band called Sinner.
Is this your arch nemesis, or was it a different bass player?
Don't you know who it was.
Okay. I'm just making
you know who it was. Everybody knows who it was.
Don't mention the war.
Don't mention the war.
I didn't start
and
it.
I was in the Battle of the Bands competition, and they didn't get anywhere, but they had this idea to put another band together that was a little bit more than the band they'd got. And they was thinking along the same lines as me, really. Let's make something a bit more colourful, a bit more the sort of band we want to see. I know it's a cliche that's been used a lot by Crew and used a lot by Kiss, but to become the band that you can't see but want to see, that's how the evolution thing works.
Well, that was the inspiration for me going on the radio.
Yeah.
Things are a cliche for a reason. I'm starting to learn as I get older.
So I answered an ad. They said they wanted a front man, and I spoke to my arch nemesis, and the interview wasn't going well. Let's put it that way. He said, "Are you tall?" I says, "Not really." He says, "Have you got blonde hair?" I says, "No." Said, "Does it look sort of glam?" I went, "No." I looked sort of like a cross between Ozzy Osbourne and Frank Marino back then. But having answered no to everything, I says, "But if you don't give me at least an audition, you'll be sorry, because I'm a damn good front man." And I said, "I can adapt and become anything that I want to become." So they basically had me along. It was unnamed at this point. I've heard a lot of stories where it was named at this point, and I joined rubbish, total, absolute bollocks. It was unnamed at this point. It had just come off the Battle of the Bands. 2 members, a bass player and a guitarist, used to be called Sinner. All of a sudden, do this audition, and it's like the chemistry is there, it's happening, it's working.
Nice.
And we just started developing. And when I saw the guitarist Phil making himself up at the first gig with his Estee Lauder makeup box, I thought, that's just weird. A bloke with that much makeup and knowing what to do with it, that's just seriously weird. But then I had a go, and it was damn fun. And then we got to the point where we learned that much about how to do our makeup. We were teaching the female fans that were coming to our gigs how to do their makeup. we go to a gig, and because the women's toilets were the only toilets that had mirrors that weren't smashed, we'd be changing in the women's toilets, and then women would come in to do their makeup, and we'd see what they were doing. No. And we tell them what to do, put the eyeliner on properly, put the blusher on. And it's like, is this for real? Because we were damn good at it, I must admit. But we got to the point then where obviously we sort of outgrew the garishness when we got to the Delirium stage, and we tried to be a bit more normal sleaze. And I think we just lost.
Tone it down on the Biz Sucks, it seemed. The image was a little bit lessened on that.
A little bit less, but it was still very sleazy. In
Yeah, it was
fact,
still very glammy.
the inner sleeve of the Bizzucks, that's the best the band have ever looked. And I've never seen pictures where Lance looks so feminine. You look at a picture and say, yeah, I'd fuck him. You know, that's never happened with previous photos, but all the photos on the Bizzucks, that was where we were starting to happen. When we got to the Delirium stage, all the major sleaze bands were coming through. LA Guns, Guns N' Roses, Faster Pussycat.
Yeah.
And they toned down. They were almost like rocking cowboys. And we sort of tried to meet them in the middle. We tried to be sort of glam rocking cowboys, and I didn't think we pulled it off that well. And then we returned what would have been the fourth album, not that was the fourth album, with the pretenders of the crown, Wrathchild. What would have been the fourth album would have been the sealing glory of returning us back to that look again.
Nice.
You know, we got it wrong on Delirium. We was heading back in the right direction for what the new album was going to be called. We did have a title for it, but I can't remember for the life of me what it was.
That sucks.
Sounded good at the time.
What could have been, right?
Yeah, exactly. We had a choice. There was either going to be Andy Scott of the Sweet producing it, Jimmy Lee Slade, John, I never remember, the bass player of the Glitter Band. I can never remember his bloody name. Even I have to look at the book every time I remember his name. Begins with S, John something or other. He was going to do it. And there was a biker musician called Ziggy Byfield. He was interested. So it would have been a really good album.
It really sucks you couldn't have put shit aside just to do that one more record with someone like that. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
what happened was we got to the stage where once the RCA America thing went tits up, there wasn't going to be a fourth album, and we all went our separate ways. And then years later, and it's proven, even though my arch nemesis seems to think it happened overnight, and he never let go of the mantle. Years and years later, two sets of Wrathchilds pop up, and that's when the trademark war came about.
Yeah, I remember that, and we'll definitely get into that because I have, you know,
Russia and Ukraine again.
Oh my, that's a mess too. Don't mention the war.
Don't mention the war.
So Phil gets grabbed by Bill Ward, and it seems like there is some musical differences on your side anyway. When did Lance come in, and you know, how did that?
Lance came in the tail end of 1982.
Okay.
So Phil has lasted till 81. He's gone off to, I think it was LA.
Yeah.
The LA. And it wasn't work. It wasn't the golden road he thought it was going to be. You know,
it's only a model.
He thought he was going to have more say than he had. It just, you know, it was an experience, but it just wasn't happening basically. And in between Lance coming, now the reason Lance and Eddie came into the fold, the band I told you about before, Medusa, that had Steve Grimmett on vocals and Lance on guitar. I think Eddie was on drums as well.
Oh,
so
wow.
Those two came as a package. Now, they were our party friends. We only used to bump into them at parties.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were thinking about replacing the guitarist, we did actually find someone in between Lance as a tidy over, but we did one demo and I just didn't like what was coming out, and basically shut that one down, and we went into the next phase, which was when we did the demo with the other guitarist who went off to live in Australia.
Okay.
He was from Birmingham originally, but he went off to Australia.
Gotcha.
Yeah. When we did that demo, Eddie came in as drummer. So we got Eddie before Lance.
Nice.
So we got the drum situation working because I thought Eddie was one of the coolest guys I'd ever seen. You know, he just looked so cool. He was the most photogenic of the band. He definitely carried off the look beyond all of us because he spent serious money on his gear. We just used to make out shit. And it was just basically, you know, anything we could throw together. Eddie would pay serious money for the best cowboy boots, good hats. And I mean, you couldn't get this shit where we lived, and there was no internet. You know, we're talking 80s, no internet, which kids find really hard to believe these days. I think the internet's always been there.
Yeah, they do. It's scary.
Basically, we got this version 2 of the band, and it's not quite happening, but the drums are happening. Lance gets drafted in, and all of a sudden, the chemistry's right.
Yeah,
it's that potion that does the job. You know, all the ingredients in there. Bang, it's there. You know, the good-looking potion. Whoosh, we're out there. And until all the legal wrangles, we were brothers. We would fight for each other and fight with each other. it was just a gang. You know, I remember Dee Snider saying Twisted was a gang. That's what Wrathchild was like in the early days. So when they all decided to turn on each other, I find that really distasteful.
Yeah.
You know, because the last thing a gang's supposed to do is turn on each other.
Agreed.
They're supposed to stay loyal to the end.
Yeah. So were you writing songs that appeared on Stack Heel then? Or when did that start? Can you talk about recording that? Because I don't think I ever asked you that.
Oh, okay. The songs that we put on Stack Hill Strut were already written. Early 82. We'd already written Teenage Revolution, Trash Queen, Rock the City Down. Rock the City Down was one of Kel's favorite tracks.
Yeah, that's a really good track. That's one that
I used to dedicate that to Kel whenever it was at a show.
Aww.
Which was, you know, had we been able to go to his funeral, I might have been able to play that for him, but sadly the COVID situation kept that one completely down. And I don't think I'll ever truly get over that. He was such a good mate. He introduced me to so many bands.
I mean, he was so kind to me, you know, and what I was doing and stuff, and so helpful and encouraging. I mean, I can remember saying, like, just messaging him, like, hey, what are you up to? He's like, oh, hey, I was just talking about you the other night. You know, like, I meant that much that he was mentioning me in conversation or something. You know, felt nice considering what all he did.
He's a great guy. You know, he did so much for so many bands. He did PR on a level that's like believable. It wasn't like paying someone to go and tell people shit about stuff. You know, he went to America and told people about Wrathchild because he was one of the brothers. You know, whenever he came over to watch us live, we'd have him in the back of the van and we'd trade some all around the country and we'd have a damn good time. You know, and he introduced me to so many bands I'd never have discovered if I hadn't have known him.
And he was
even some of these like Japanese sort of glam bands like Bow Wow Wow and Loudness and bands like that. He introduced me to all that. I'd never have heard of Legs Diamond if it hadn't been for Kel.
Wow. Yeah.
And Stars. He introduced me to Stars.
Yeah, they're a great band. Detroit girls.
Man. I love Stars. Yeah. So yeah, but no, back to Stack Hill Strut. So we've been approached now by a record label called Neon. I think we've already done a series of shows in their hometown, which I think was Stoke, and they've put an idea to us to record an EP. And I remember we put the tracks down and we did the photo session for it. And at that point, Eddie used to do the little trills and yelps that you hear on those early songs.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was Eddie, yeah. And I used to think that was like our version of Steve Priest, you know, the stuff
Yeah.
that he did with the Swedes. And I thought it was unique. But then when our one manager came along, the guy who used to manage Brun's Records, Jerry Brun, he said he held us up at this one session and he said, somebody's singing out of tune and it's not sounding right. And we knew it was these little trills. And overnight, Eddie stopped doing it. He was that embarrassed about it. He stopped doing it. And I thought the music suffered for it because what was unique suddenly wasn't so unique.
Yeah.
So Stack Hill Strut is the last time that Eddie actually does these little chirps and yelps, you know, Lipstick Killers, Teenage Revolution, Rock the City Down, all that squealy stuff. That's Eddie. And I miss it
great.
because that to me was Wrathchild. Those little squeaks and yelps and stuff, that was different.
It was almost how, like, in the Dolls when they did Trash, Johnny Thunders did that, like, alley cat, you know, try-ish, you know.
Yeah.
It gave it that extra edge. If that wasn't there, it wouldn't sound right, you know. I get what you mean, that little off.
It's like any of those tracks, I've played those tracks since without those vocals and they don't sound the same.
Yeah.
In fact,
I can see why
I bought some of those tracks back for the new version of the band, but because nobody's doing the yelps and screeches, it didn't work. So I dropped every single track that we bought from Stack Hill Strut into the set. It wasn't doing us any favors, so I just dropped it and I just concentrated on the existing stuff. Well, so basically that came out in 1983, even though the stuff was written in 82.
Okay.
It came out in 83. And then we followed it up pretty quickly, virtually the same year, with the Do You Want My Love single.
Okay.
Twist of the Knife B-side. But that wasn't recorded at the same place we did Stack Hill Strut. That was recorded up close to Newcastle because Venom were in the studio at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And there was a meeting. Me and Kronos didn't get on too well.
What the hell do you want my love?
Exactly. I came very close to having my head punched in by Kronos one day.
Oh shit.
He's the sort of guy that you can see polishes his forehead, ready to deliver the strike. You know, it's got a very good sheen on it. You know, just ripe for connecting with somebody's face. And I remember meeting the guitarist Jeff Mantas on the stairs, and I'd had a few beers at this point. And I remember attacking him with a potato peeler and telling him to turn me into a frog, like you do. But luckily, he saw the good side of it, and there was no further altercation.
I don't know. I think if I was in Venom, I would find that funny.
I think he might find it funny looking back on it now, but at the time, I think they was doing a bit of recording. We was recording the Do You Want My Love single, and this crazy dude that jumps out on the staircase with a potato peeler and says, "Turn me into a frog, you bastard." You know, I don't think it's like, what? But yeah, straight after that, they then became the Kerrang Darlings, and they couldn't do a thing wrong. And they started doing photo spreads with Tiger Tails, and Tiger Tails were already Kerrang Darlings. Kerrang hated Wrathchild. Most of the press hated Wrathchild because we wouldn't suck up to them. We wouldn't suck up to anyone. We wouldn't suck up to any of the record company people that come down. We don't suck up to the bands that are bigger than us, because at the end of the day, they're just people.
Yeah.
You know, we don't suck up to anyone. And it's the same thing Animal said from Anti-Nowhere League. You know, be yourself. Don't suck up to anyone. Okay. You know, if that's what you are, that's what you are.
You know,
that's exactly how it came about.
Yeah.
So Kerrang then went on this massive spread to make the tails bigger than us. And they, of course, got a much better label than we did. You know, they had less of the legal shit than we did. And they went on to be, you know, Glam champions from the UK. And we ended up working for a living. Go figure.
Oh, sounds like the New York Dolls and Aerosmith in the early 70s in America.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I've read the history of the Damned and the Cult, and they run similar paths.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that one.
Yeah. Yeah, the Damned was given a rough time. The Cult was given a rough time.
Wow.
And it does forge the kind of
They're
band you
two
become.
highly regarded bands. That's the crazy thing.
Exactly. Well, I don't respect anyone that sort of poo-poos their own music. Like, whatever you do and whatever you look like, it must have appealed to you at some point, at least once.
Yeah.
Own it and put it in the history books. Don't years later go, oh, I'm really embarrassed about that, yada, yada, yada. And unfortunately, that's what Ian Astbury did with the Cult. Some of his early look, he decried it. And also some of the other bands, their singers have decried the way they look, guitarists have decried the way they look. I know in the early days, I looked a bag of spanners, but it was my bag of spanners. It belonged in my toolkit.
And you
and
own
I
it.
don't regret any of it.
I would.
You know, no,
I
but
mean,
bands do. Bands get embarrassed, and I mean, that's why I admire Dee Snider when he did the Twisted film. Some of the footage of how he used to look,
yeah.
most bands wouldn't let that out the drawer, but he didn't care. He wanted you to see what they used to look like, and the only way you can do that is by putting it out there. And I admire him for that, because
Yeah,
I did exactly the same with early pictures of Wrathchild. There's early pictures of Wrathchild out there where I look hideous, but it was my hideous, and it's my fault for not looking any better.
I mean, you say that some of the early photos for Wrathchild were hideous. Look at Kiss when they took off their makeup, when they first took off their makeup.
The worst look was the look before they became Kiss. That look that was trying to be the Dolls. That didn't quite work, did it?
Kind of went back to that around Asylum too. They had those big flashy outfits.
Yeah, that didn't quite work. I mean, Gene Simmons as a blonde, you know, he looked a bit sort of New York Dolls bass player, didn't he? Basically, with that.
Yeah, the sequins and the long jacket. He was trying to be a Hollywood movie star at the time. So yeah.
So basically, the look we had and the look it evolved into, that was real. That was us at the time. Yeah. That's how we used to look. The only difference between us and a lot of bands at the time was some bands used to get changed out of that look to become who they were on stage. We were virtually the same. We looked as we did. That's how we walked around. Yeah, you know, we didn't care. That's the way we got attention. You know, we clumped around in them stupid boots for ages. I've fallen off that many curbs in them stupid boots.
I can only imagine being drunk and trying to walk home in those.
Yeah, it is very akin to that. Especially as my boots, they weren't proper boots. They were like an amalgamation of a leg collar and a shoe, a platform shoe.
Wow.
People wondered why I wore the leg warmers. They cover the gap. People think I've got this penchant for wearing leg warmers. It's just simply covers the gap between the top of the shoe and the leg collar.
It's practicality.
We couldn't afford platform boots. We hadn't got that sort of money.
Yeah.
We had to make our own platform boots from platform shoes and these leg collars. But that's pretty clever. That's how clever we were. And I mean, a lot of people have accredited bands for doing things. And I don't like it when people try and make out they were the only ones to do it, because let's face it, if anybody thinks along the same lines, they're going to do the same thing. Now, we were doing what Wasp did with their stage gear years before we'd even heard of Wasp. Screws, nuts, bolts, nails, you name it, we were putting it into stage gear because that was the only thing you could put into stage gear to make it look different. And then Wasp come along, and it's like, we're original because we do this and nobody else does it. Sorry, I was drinking blood out of a skull back in the early 70s. You know, you're and I mean, Crew did it as well. The blood out the skull and setting fire to Nicky's boots was supposedly such an amazing event.
I know.
We used to do that at parties. We used to set fire to people's boots at parties. You know, never mind stage. We do it for real.
Oh, the crazy world of Arthur Brown.
Exactly. Set fire to your head.
Dress on fire. Like, come on.
I mean, he used to set fire to his head.
Yeah.
That headdress caused that many fires to his head. Never mind Gene Simmons's airspray incident. You know, Arthur Brown was a serious, oven risk.
Yeah, like literally he has fire on his head.
Yeah. But we've all toyed with fire because fire was the most dangerous medium next to pyros. So everybody toyed with pyros, everybody doctored them, everybody did some serious things that they shouldn't have done with pyros. So what's the next stage? You set fire to things. Then the next stage from that is you need to bleed for the crowd. So you do the Iggy Pop thing, you start cutting yourself up and, fighting on stage and stuff. And where'd you take it from there? Where'd you take it from there? You could only come on and start shooting people. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Well,
I had lots of stage weaponry, but I never shot anyone.
Hey, you shoot a confetti bazooka.
Yeah, the confetti bazooka was brilliant. I didn't realise, though, here's something else that's never been admitted. The guy who designed the confetti cannon bazooka and all the confetti cannons that we used on stage, he was actually a rocket scientist. You know what you say, well, that's not rocket science. Well, I'm afraid it was.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, I didn't know. He contacted me recently and we was sharing some stories. And he says, you didn't realise I was actually a rocket scientist. All this stuff you took for granted that was just pyrotechnics. And I'm like, fucking hell, that's just brilliant. Yeah. So all this stuff we were using was like serious shit. It was meant to do what it did.
Indoors, weren't you?
Yeah. We had outdoor festival pyros indoors.
Oh, fuck.
We didn't just have outdoor pyros. We didn't just go to garden fate pyros. We had outdoor festival pyros indoors. We've taken out ceilings. We've burnt scenery down to the ground. We've set fire to stages. And I know Crew say things like, we were the most outrageous band on the planet, blah, blah, blah. We've done this, we've done that. Yeah, well, a lot of bands have done that, but you're not the only ones. You might be the only ones that bought your PR crew to lug it all down and have it viewed. But we were doing all that damage long before they came on the scene. And I'm sure some of the punk bands were doing loads of damage before they come on the scene.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about that.
I've spoken to some punk bands that did some serious shit.
The toilets at CBGBs are notorious to this day.
Exactly.
So all this, the single and the EP lead up to Stack Attack. How did that happen? Give us some stories recording it.
Right. Now, at this point, we're doing a lot of gigs. We're doing a hell of a lot of gigs. And unbeknownst to us, the guys who are responsible for doing these two, the EP and the single, Neon Records, they're doing this little bit of a deal behind our backs with Heavy Metal Records. we didn't know this was going on, because most people don't. You don't know this stuff's going on. And when it's presented to you, you think it's like a first time thing.
Yeah.
It's like but you're being reeled in. It's like when you're with that girl and she really wants to offload you on a mate, but to do it, they've got to like plot together and get the scenario together. You're trying to get off with the one girl, but she's trying to offload you on a mate.
Yeah.
You don't know it happens until it happens, and then suddenly you think it's like your idea. And by the time we got to the heavy metal records thing, we were talking, we're going to do an album. That typical, we're going to do an album, never mind a single and an EP. We're going to do an album.
Yeah.
And it was done in Derek James Music Studios, which is where Elton John did a lot of his stuff. And just the prestige alone in our history in the mines was enough to sell that to us. Tottenham Court Road, London. Elton John used to be in there. It's like, I think George Michael had been in there at some point. So it's a case of like, we've got to do this.
Yeah, pinch me.
And then unfortunately, the end result didn't justify the excitement. Plus I discovered at that point how low my attention span actually was. I don't think I stayed awake through any of the mixing down. Wow. I did my recording. I stayed around to watch other people do their recording. But then when they started mixing everything down, I think I was drunk and asleep under the mixing desk.
Oh, shit. Well, I mean, that's the unfortunate thing about a lot of albums, especially back then. I mean, the songs save it. I mean, the first New York Dolls album, Todd Rundgren produced that horribly, but the songs are great. And the same is true for Stack Attack, but in a different way. What the hell happened with the drums?
Well, it was a case of like, to save time, we needed a little bit of electronic help with the drums, because Ed did a good job, but his timing could be a bit suspect now and again. And we didn't have time for that.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that bands can spend their entire career just doing drums in a studio for an album. This is such an eye-opener and an ear-opener for bands that have never done it before. You actually sit through like a couple of days of just listening to drums, and it's like, why? Just get a sound and just play. So I think they tried to make it a little too much electronic rather than realistic. Plus, you've got to remember, studio techniques at that time weren't really that clever.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you could have made anybody sound like John Bonham.
Oh, yeah.
You could have made anyone sound like Tommy Lee simply by just pressing a few triggers. Back then, if you wanted aggression, if you wanted technical prowess, you had to coax it a bit.
Gotcha.
And that's basically what happened with that.
I mean, like I said, the songs are fantastic. They're classic. They're anthemic. They're fun.
But can you imagine what the album would have been if we'd have been able to do the version of the album with RCA America? They wanted us to redo Stack Attack. Imagine what an album that would have been. That would have been the album. That would have been our Appetite for Destruction, our Van Halen one.
Yeah. It really would have rewrote history. Absolutely.
Yeah. But
touring, what was that like? Where all did you go? Any memorable gigs?
The annoying thing about touring was we never got out our own country. And it's one thing that really racked me off, because I always wanted to travel somewhere with Wrathchild, and I only ended up traveling the world with other bands. So I've seen the world and played the world with other bands. I always wanted to play with Wrathchild. So we played just about everywhere you could possibly play in the UK. Even Ireland wouldn't let us in because of the stage show. I remember when Wasp were approaching doing Belfast, that would have been the 6th date on the Wasp tour.
Yeah.
And they said they was going to have to scale down on their gear to get into Belfast. And we was at that stage where we wasn't going to scale down anything. If you don't want to let us in, we ain't coming in. You know, if we can't bring our toys, we ain't coming. That's how arrogant we were at that time. So basically, we literally just went up and down. We went to Scotland, Wales, back down south, back up north. We did a W basically all across the country. And we literally created so much mayhem and destruction and violence. I think we even outdid some of the punk bands, to be honest. Yeah. It wasn't our bag. We didn't want to do it, but it was that thing that the crew came across with the rednecks. Just because we wear makeup and lipstick, don't mean we can't kick your ass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we had people try it. You know, I had a guy attack me with a Stanley knife at one gig.
Damn.
You know, like a, what you call them?
Box cutter.
Those knives you cut carpets with.
Yeah. Fuck.
I don't know what you Americans call things, you know. So we call them a Stanley knife because that's who makes them. But somebody once slashed at me with one of them on stage. And luckily Lance was a bit faster than my eyesight. And he just caught him straight in the chest with his platform boot and sent him about 12 rows back and then told me what had happened.
God damn.
We've had so many scuffles. And I think the worst one we had was simply because our management and our agents, for some obscure reason, booked us into a reggae venue by mistake. So you have to picture this. We've got the Fortress set with the cannons, the barbed wire, everything. We're in full gear, and all of a sudden the clientele are walking in and the alarm bells are ringing. They don't look like we do. And I'm thinking, call me a pessimist, but I've got a feeling this is going to end up really, really bad. And sure enough, there was a massive scrap at the end of that one, and our 20-foot backdrop got stolen that night.
Oh shit!
Somebody actually walked out the door with our 20-foot backdrop, and nobody saw
Just
a thing.
carried it down the street.
Just carry it. Yep, 20 feet, no problem. And nobody saw a thing. And a box of our t-shirts.
Oh wow! That makes me think of that.
Nobody saw a thing.
Have during Power Slave when someone stole the torso to their Eddie that came out on stage, like just this giant mummified torso.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. I can't imagine taking something like 20 feet long and just lugging it home.
Yeah. We said to the bouncers on the door, we said, have you seen anything? You know, a box of t-shirts has walked out this door and a 20-foot backdrop. And it's like, no, man. And the funny thing was, I don't know whether you came across the concept of feminists, but they were like women, the Greenham Common thing, the women who was fighting for the rights to not look like women, basically. We had one of these fighting in this particular venue, and the scuffle was going on, and one of the bouncers grabbed hold of what he thought was a bloke and was about to drop kick him in the head, and his mate shouts, "No, Morris, it's a bird."
No, Morris, it's a bird. Oh my god.
I nearly pissed myself on the spot. Here we go, cuckoo's up again.
Oh my god.
Be chatting for an hour because the cuckoo's gone off again.
Oh yeah, the cuckoo clock. So obviously at 84, you know, when Sack Attack was, you know, you were touring it or it was recorded, there's footage everywhere of the Camden Palace. Give us
that again.
The Camden Palace show in 84.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit. What do you remember?
Oh, bloody hell. Camden Palace. What people don't realise about that show was before the show took place, the club was being loaned out for an underage kind of Italian disco. Don't ask questions. I just don't know. I don't know where this came from.
British
But,
John Travolta's everywhere.
yeah. The idea was when the show was about to start, because bear in mind, the show was being filmed for a television program and it actually went out live. So the idea was to get rid of the Italians just as our people were coming in and we were about to start, but there was a little overlap. So there is actual photographs and film footage somewhere of Wrathchild dancing around Italian handbags in stack heel boots before we even do that Camden Palace.
Oh my!
Yeah, we know how to party, and
I can only imagine the looks from the discoers.
So we're backstage, and we know we're working for television, and there's certain things you can say and certain things you can't say. What we didn't expect was the producer, female producer of this program, coming in 5 minutes before we're due to go on stage and say, here's the things you can't say. And it was like, oh, and it's like, we haven't really got time to adjust what we do say now. So I had to make up a lot of stuff as I went along.
On the spot, yeah.
If you watch really, really closely, there's a couple of things that I start to say, realize halfway through,
I can't say it.
I'm talking absolute bollocks. And then I click back into what I should be saying. The perfect one is, I think it's just before Law Abuser. I say something along the lines, I've heard London sex starved. Is this true? And they're all cheering. And then I realised that's not the song we're about to play. So I said, well, here's a song all about breaking the law. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, sex star, breaking the law.
Yeah.
Got away with that one.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't get away with
it was funny during Hot Rock Shock.
Yeah.
I want to do all the things that they won't let me do.
But there's one guy down the front who actually shouts the words, cock rock shop, motherfucker. Now, what you don't see, but what I can see when I look at it,
I pick
the mic stand up, which is quite heavy, and before it comes back down on the stage, it connects with his head first. If you watch really closely, you can see it stopping midair before it goes down. That's connecting with his head. Because I thought that might have ruined their chances of this thing being released. Even though it was going out live, they could stop it at any point. They said that to us. They said, if you do any profanities or anything un-Wrathchild like, basically that live in London, the Camden Palace show, to me, it doesn't reek of us. It's too tame.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to be us. It'd be like watching a Tubes show without the sex. I was lucky enough to see the Tubes in England before they got banned. That was one hell of a show.
I bet.
That was scary sex. That was real scary. That was the sort of level of sex we could never even get away with.
They wanted you out of the country.
So we had a good go.
Alone.
We had a good go. But another thing, when that show started, what I didn't realise was in them stupid clumpy stack heels, I take the bass player's lead out of his bass, and our so-called technicians don't realise it's just the lead that's come out, and they start messing about with the amps, thinking the amps have gone down. And if you watch really closely, there's an overdub bass line where there's actually nothing happening.
Yeah.
And it's because I took his lead out. I don't think he'd forgive me for that.
That's great.
But yeah, I watch it over and over again for that. That's brilliant. And we have all friends around. We go, watch, this is good now. Watch what that foot does. The lead's gone, the lead's gone. It's switching all the knobs and nothing's happening.
Oh, just plug it back in. Halfway through the song.
No, I didn't realise it was just the lead.
What do I pay you people for? Oh, they're not paying me.
They were on better money than we were at the end, the
Oh,
roadies,
God.
because of all the legal wrangles. We got nothing. Even our per days were being given up, and they were getting paid because you can't expect them to work for nothing. So our roadies were being paid, and we were doing the shows for nothing.
Fuck.
I can't think of any big bands that would do that these days.
No.
You know, we're not getting paid, we're fucking playing. Simple.
Yeah. So obviously when obviously we're getting into that 85, 84, 85. What exactly happened? And the Trash Queens compilation, I know, is something you didn't authorize at all. And you've been outspoken since I've known you that you're not happy that that was put out.
Well, tail end of 84, RCA America made a bid to Heavy Metal Records for us. And basically, the manager of Heavy Metal Records, who's admitted since that he got this all wrong, puts his flag in the ground and says, you can't have them unless you pay this scary money figure, which was just ridiculous at the time.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of block put on the band where we can't do anything. And we start doing a series of shows as aliases, and they're like our song title aliases. So it's obvious it's us.
Yeah.
You know, be like the Pistols going out as Holidays in the Sun, or Pretty Vacant, or Bodies.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It was that obvious. You know, we went out as Trash Queens at one point. You know, we went out as Shocker. We went out as Law Abuser. You know, that sort of thing. So, being business minded, they obviously thought it'd be a great idea to put product out underneath the radar. And the first I actually saw of the Trash Queens album was when me and the guys from Wrathchild, we was having a drinking session in a place called Worcester. I was stumbling back from the pub, back to the vehicle that was going to take us home. I think our driver was waiting for us. And I saw this album cover in a record shop window. And I thought, hey, they look really cool. I like that gear. It's like our gear. So I walked over to the window and I looked at the band. I goes, that's us. And they looked really close. And they went, do you remember doing that album? I says, no. Says, do you remember that photo session? I said, no. And it was basically a black and white photo with the lips painted red.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, that's wrong straight away, because there was only two of us that had red lipstick. The others had different colours, so they got that wrong straight away. So I'm thinking, this needs investigating. And it took a couple of years before we tracked down what it was all about.
Wow.
And it turned out that all Trash Queens was outtakes of demos, and Cockrock Shock was taken from a sound check at the Salford Glam Festival.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't even the proper versions of the tracks. They were like outtakes of demos. It's just pure vinyl shit. You'd be better off. You'd be better off melting it down, rolling it into a spliff, and just smoking
it. Get high off the fumes of dog shit.
Yeah, it's not worth playing. It's not worth dirtying your turntable for. And yet, I've spoken to people all around the world, and that's the first product they ever heard from Wrathchild.
Well, I think it's one of the
we love your Trash Queens album.
Available.
What? It's shit.
Strangely enough,
now,
I think it was widely available for a long time.
Oh yeah, we couldn't stop it. It's a bit like the Tommy and Pam video thing. You know, they couldn't stop it. They knew it was out there. They couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
They huffed and puffed. They sent legal people out. They sent biker gangs out. They couldn't stop it. That's exactly what happened with us. We couldn't stop this product. We didn't know. We knew it was coming from a company called Castle Communications. What we didn't know was those working in conjunction with our record company, who changed its name by that point.
Wow.
It had become something else at that point.
Gotcha.
So this is like a revelation to us. It's like, how can they get away with doing this? But they just can.
Yeah, and you don't even see a dime from any of it.
No, exactly. And when people are using that as the first thing that they hear from the band, it's sort of like, oh, we did so much better stuff. And this is the first thing you heard. It's like so many people will listen to that and think, not very good, are they? You know, and it's like, yes,
Yeah.
we are. We're damn bloody good, but you're just playing this shit product.
Oh man.
It'd be like, say the first Van Halen thing you ever hear is the 1976 demo. It's still Van Halen, but it ain't the Van Halen we know and love.
Yeah.
You know, if that's the first thing you hear, the first thing you're going to say is, they're okay.
Yeah.
Nothing special. Whereas Van Halen 1 comes out, nothing special. It was everything special. This guy's put guitar back on the map. This guy's reinvented guitar.
And it packs a
You
punch
know,
that just goes kabam right into your nuts.
exactly. And this is the downside to it all, the fact that they can get away with this and it does us irreparable damage. Now,
It does you
going
no
back
good.
very briefly to the Live in London Camden Palace thing, there's 2 tracks that are on that video, the live performance, that should have been on that 4th album. Give It All You Got, Blood on the Blade was going to be on that 4th album. That's why it looks strange that it stands out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But by the time we got around to doing the demo for the 4th album, all the tracks were better than them too. So it wouldn't have made the 4th album. There was 10 more tracks other than them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
There you go. You learn something new every day. I am a wealth of information. I am a fountain of information. Most of it's bollocks, but it's there.
Hey, I'm the same way in a different kind of way. So I mean, that's why we get along. So in this time though, too, you guys kind of did other stuff. You were fronting Discharge for a little bit.
I was only fronting them in the rehearsal room.
Yeah.
We've got gigs planned. And the idea was I was going to take over the second leg of an American tour. Now, in the meantime, I discovered that Discharge fans wasn't welcoming the new sound that well. Now, add another bloke to the mix, I don't think it would have been a good idea, but that's not why I didn't do it. I don't like doing stuff if it's not bringing something to the table.
Yeah.
If I think something is detrimental and I'm the cause, I'll be the first to say, get rid of me, replace me, no problem.
Yeah.
And even though as a band, we were sounding really good, we weren't Discharge.
Gotcha.
Not the Discharge people would have loved.
Yeah.
And I think there would have been a problem. And the thing that sold it for me was when I was told, because of my legal situation, I would never be credited for anything that I wrote for them.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I was at the stage where I'd had enough shit in the business. Why shouldn't I be credited for anything I do?
Agreed.
So, as though the band took it badly and we didn't leave on favourable terms, which is a real shame because I love those guys. I thought that version of the band was really, really good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Discharge.
Oh, I understand.
You know, it's like, is Kiss on the Unmasked album the Kiss that we really came to know? I don't think so.
The Celtic Frost Cold Lake euphemism for that.
Yeah, and also Kiss that play the Elder. Is that the Kiss we've come to know, or is it getting too technical for it sound good?
The Elder was the Wicked Lester that we knew.
Yeah, exactly. It went a bit too arty-farty for my liking.
It had a lot more in common with the Wicked Lester stuff that Gene and Paul did years before.
Yeah, I heard all that stuff. That's why I know what tracks came from them to Dress to Kill.
Yeah. It's funny.
But hands down, the Kiss versions of their tracks are better,
Oh yeah,
much better.
the song "She" on "Dress to Kill," especially that song. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, did you do anything else really in between that was like reputable, like Discharge, or because
Not
there's a
really.
4 year gap between your first and second albums.
Yeah, the gap just meant we rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. And even though I temporarily joined Discharge, once a new deal was cut with what Heavy Metal Records became, the new
Yeah.
label, it wasn't as bad as the previous deal, but it was basically still a contractual obligation album. And
Got
that was how Delirium came about.
okay.
But
Well, you had the Biz Sucks first before
no,
Delirium.
This Sucks was first, wasn't it? Right, okay. There's a bit before that. So we get back into the rehearsal room and we get round the talking table. I've discovered now that I'm not going to be credited for anything I do. So I air my dislike of what's happening situation wise. Everybody else does likewise. And we decide to reinvent the band into a new sound, which was the Big Suck sound. And it was my idea to put female backing singers in rather than just go the same pattern, Stack Attack revisited.
Yeah.
And if I've got to choose a favorite album, even though Stack Attack's got the tracks, for its sheer inventiveness at the time, the Biz Sucks is my album.
That's mine too,
because
ironically.
Because it invented a little bit extra. It invented something a little bit newer than that had previously gone before.
Yeah.
So we persevered. We tried to sort the legal wrangle out in the meantime. And basically, in the meantime, we discovered that RCA America had lost interest. They caused all this friction and trouble. And then because of all the delay, they'd lost interest. You know, it's like when people take over positions, their stance on bands change.
Yeah.
The people that were interested in us had obviously moved on down the line, and the people that came in weren't that interested. So we then went back out to tour with the Biz Sucks, and fair enough, it got some really good press.
Yeah.
The Biz Sucks album, very happy.
Like I said, it's my favorite record of your guys's too.
But then we discover that there's not a lot else happening, and this new deal was cut with the record label, and that's how Delirium came about. It was more a contractual obligation album than anything else. But it was because we found out we weren't on the same deal as the shit deal that we started off the problem with. But it still wasn't going to solve our problems. And we lasted then from Delirium up to 91. Wrathchild ceased to be, even though this is contended by his lordship, there is no physical proof that Wrathchild existed after 1991 April, none whatsoever. It then surfaces in 2008 where the paper trail reconvenes.
Yes. And that's
and at that point we had a choice of putting another version of Wrathchild back together again, which he did. And I went on to form Wildside Riot, and in the meantime sang for a band called Handsome Beasts and a Van Halen tribute.
And you did the Blues Brothers thing recently too.
And we did the Blues Brothers, yeah. That was later. That was much later. That was after the rock sort of died a little bit.
Yeah. You've done a lot of stuff. The Wild Side Riot record, that's a fantastic, phenomenal record. I still play tracks to that on my radio show.
I love that record.
Fucking
I
beast.
actually used money from my sale of the art for my Blues Brothers act to fund a big piece of that record.
Nice. It sounds great. It rocks hard. The
And
song.
also, every single track has had some kind of musical input from me in, which is something that Wrathchild would never allow.
Oh,
Vocalists
wow.
don't know enough about music to, make any decisions. But as I was paying the lion's share of the product, I wasn't doing the dictator thing. I was just saying this would sound good there, that would sound good there, and we discussed it. Everything was discussed.
Yeah.
And every single track has got a piece of me in there as well as the vocals, and that's why it's special. I just think that album is personal, and from the opening track all the way through to There Is a Bullet for Each of You,
which is a great fucking.
I wonder what that was written about.
I think I know.
That was a message. And I think they got the message.
Oh, I didn't start it. Yes, you did. You invaded Poland.
Exactly. That's the one. So, yeah, I'm very proud of that album. And funnily enough, my new version of Wrathchild, Rocky Shade's Wrathchild, the guys were in rehearsal the other day, and they said, we should do more tracks off No Second Take.
I agree.
And I said, you want to play them? I'll play them. I said, at the moment, I'm appeasing the Wrathchild fans that want this old shit because nobody does it anymore.
Yeah.
But you want to play anything off that album? I'm happy to do it. There's not one track on that album I wouldn't do.
Agreed. I mean, there's not a bad song on it, and it's very diverse.
And there's a lot of serious messages in there.
Oh, yeah.
Angel on My Back.
Yep.
There Is a Bullet for Each of You.
Fuck them.
That's the fuck 'em. Oh, great story about fuck 'em. We did some support with a big German band called Fry Wild, and we was only due to play one night in London, and we got on so well with them. They were playing Birmingham the following night, and they said to us, do you want to do this show? We said, do it, no problem. You don't live that far away. The fans that we saw the previous night, when I turned up at the venue, I turned up after the rest of the band. They were sound checking, and I come afterwards. All the Germans were going, fuck them, fuck them, fuck 'em.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, yeah, wow. And these are the same people. I love just gesticulating with my hands when I'm singing. It's just something colourful vocalists do. And there's a line in Wild Side Riot that says nightmare roller coaster ride, which is basically an up and down thing.
Yeah.
We're playing in front of 900 Germans, and for that one night only, I decide roller coaster means upward salute. So the promoter shouts to the manager, Rocky Shades has just Nazi saluted 900 Germans.
Oh,
like, no, that's not what he was doing at all. He was nightmare roller coaster. Oh, man. How we got away with our lives that night, I just don't know. But we did.
It was obvious your intentions. People saw you going like that.
I mean, they knew what I was doing, but the promoter just saw me go.
Well, yeah, I would have shit my pants too.
We hate Illinois Nazis.
Maybe next time I shouldn't do that.
900 Germans.
9.
Don't mention the war.
Don't mention the war.
Don't mention the war. I did once, but I got away with it.
So what in the near future can we expect from Rocky Shade's Wrathchild?
Right, well, we've been rehearsing, so we're getting a sound together. But every time it looks like we're coming out, COVID does something, and the things we're booked for get postponed. They don't get cancelled; they just get postponed. So, at the moment, we're at the stage where we're honing our craft again. I personally, being a video gamer and well into racing games, are taking the time where we're not rehearsing to just race the shit out of my new racing cockpit and PlayStation 5 concept.
No,
But eventually we will have to like get back on the road and do something before I become either too old or too dead. And we have talked about recording, but at this present moment in time, we've just done a track for a tribute album, which we can't tell you too much about because the tribute album hasn't come out yet. Yeah. And it might be a little bit of a surprise when it does. Who knows? So there is actually a brand new track, even though it's a cover version of a punky track. It's a cover version of a track from Johnny's punk band. Our bass player now is punk band. It's okay. In version of his track, but it's a good one. And if the time's right and if the situation's right, we'll probably record something. But at the moment, I'm just quite happy to just go with the flow. I've just recently got married.
Yeah, to congratulations.
A girl that's been a long-time fan of mine, and I've been a long-time fan of hers. So it was just an amalgamation just waiting to happen.
Congratulations.
When we first met, she said to me, "Do you know, I used to have a picture of you on my bedroom wall?" And I said, "That's a coincidence. So did I." But yeah, she's golden, bless her. And she loves, what she says is, while I can still do it and it's not embarrassing, do it. But the second you start going a bit too gravelly, a bit too embarrassing, be prepared to knock it on the head. And at the moment, the air's all mine. The colour lives in the bottle, but the air's all mine. And the frame's not bad for an old bloke. So no, I'm happy to carry on. I'm happy to carry on.
And we're happy that you are too. At least I am. I guess that leads to my
We're going to meet up one day. You do realise we're going to meet up before I die and we're going to have a fucking party.
Oh, yeah, I know. Once things calm down, I'm on Hard Rock Hell Radio, so I have a reason to go over to England now. So
excellent. Yes, I'll do you a little spoil thing when I get a chance.
No problem. I guess the
so
last
busy of
late. I ask everyone, what do you love about music, man?
I love the fact that all music is emotion. Forget the bands that think they own a particular genre. Take music as what it is. It's a collection of notes that stimulates the brain. Now, sometimes the collection of notes don't work with a particular brain, which is why you like certain music and hate others. Yeah. It's like you hate tones of voice, you hate the way things are painted or presented. It's just the way it comes across. Now, music to me is just pure emotion. There is a tune out there for every single emotion you could possibly hope to go through. If you're upset, there's a tune waiting for you. If you're angry, there's a tune that's going to fuel it. If you're angry and you don't want to be angry, there's a tune that's going to calm you down. You know, to me, music, the most important thing is forget making people superstars and assholes. I think, and I'd say this hand on heart, I've read a lot of autobiographies, and the one thing I'm really glad about is I never made it to the point where I changed into one of those people, because that wouldn't have been me.
Yeah.
You know, if I'd have had so much financial power that you could just abuse anyone around you, and if anybody says something, you sue them, you have them beat up, You have them run out of town. You have their house burnt down. You know,
Yeah,
there's that kind of power out there, and it's just wrong. I'm
absolutely.
glad I never got to that stage. I got to be a little band in a little pond, but I made some waves, and I'll go down in history for making those waves. I didn't carve my own niche. Some
No.
of it was already happening, but I added my flavor to it. I added my spice,
Hmm.
you know. So music to me will always be all about emotion.
It's part of the human
Even some pop
experience.
songs, I hate pop songs, but there's some pop songs that you listen to and you think, yeah, I understand that. I see where you're coming from there.
Yeah. You don't have to like it, but you can understand what they're saying.
Exactly. What I don't like is when people listen to a piece of music and without thinking goes, that's shit.
Yeah.
I
I
know.
can be like, wow, that's a hell of a statement.
That's
And
why I hate these reviewers that only say things to make a bit of a stir. You know, they might not think it for real, but by saying it, you
yeah.
know, I remember once reading, I think it was a Michael Schenker album. The poor band had been in this studio for a few months, and the reviewer just said, "Oh, what a crock of shit."
Oh
What
my
right did that bloke have of saying that a collection of songs, okay, it's not the best of the best, but you've got no right to say that's a crock of shit.
yeah. I mean, I
You
stopped
know,
being a journalist and
I, I've had, not personally because I probably wouldn't get anywhere near them, but I've had run-ins on paper and in interviews with bands like Def Leppard and Motley Crue, two of the biggest bands, rock bands in the world.
yeah.
I've got an issue of classic rock where two of the biggest rock bands in the world run my band down. If we're that inconsequential, why run us down? Why not just shrug your shoulders and say, who?
Yeah.
Joe Elliott described Wrathchild to Nikki Sixx, who already knew us anyway. He described us as that band who stole your look but took it too far. Really? You know, we've been looking like that since 1980. They've been looking like that since 1981, yet we stole their look. If that makes sense. Now,
You
we
sing better than their singer ever has, if that's any consolation.
but we could be at like war every step of the way. But basically, anything you say against bands that have got more money than sense, anything
Yeah.
they don't like to hear, they'll just fucking sue the ass of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won't even face you head on and say, if you say that again, I'm gonna punch your lights out. You know, now I've got every reason to dislike that band for things they've said about my band. I love Crew. I love their music. I don't like them, but I
Yeah.
like the music because the music does what I said earlier on. It stirs emotions.
I hate Ted
It's
Nugent as a human being, but he's a damn good guitarist who wrote some damn good songs.
There's another example. I love Ted Nugent, but I don't like what he stands for.
I don't like him as a person. I don't like his politics, but I
No.
like a couple of his songs. Sue me.
I love Crew music. I loved Wasp. You know, I actually thought Wasp music was brilliant.
And then you met him.
And then, yeah, I met him, and all he did since we met was like run us down any chance he can. And then this angst builds up. The press get hold of it, and all of a sudden we're meeting each other in a boxing ring. Oh, get real. You know, grow the fuck up.
That's what bothers me too about Maiden with Thunderstick. Like he's a
Oh,
good
that was shocking.
you know,
I didn't like the way that came about because when Bruce was in Samson, there was a nice tight unit. I remember Samson. I
yeah.
remember Bruce in Samson, and they were a very, very good tight unit. And now that he's a superstar, to even think of running his old band down, it'd be like me running one of my old bands down.
Yeah.
My old bands are responsible for for forging my craft. If it hadn't have been for my older bands, I'd never have forged the craft that I went on to forge.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't become me overnight.
Yeah.
I became me over a period of years. Love it or hate it, that's the truth. You know, I became me through a series of unfortunate events.
Don't we all?
But yeah, I don't understand why bands have got to run other bands down just for the sake of
when
it.
they're the cream of the crop. You don't, it's not necessary. You don't need to push others down.
I mean, have you read this latest thing with Eddie Vedder and Nicky Six slagging each other off? How childish is that? They're not even the same genre of music, so how you can put them in the same ballpark? You know, Pearl Jam, Motley Crue, Pearl Jam, a band you listen to and get stoned to. Motley Crue, get up there, party music, put it on at a rock disco, surrounded with chicks. It works.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest Pearl Jam fan, but I'm like, Nikki, you're Vince can't sing, and you're gonna have the nerve to call Eddie Vedder this or that. Like, come on, like, you know,
Now, did Eddie Vedder say that? Did Eddie Vedder turn around and say, "I don't know why you're having a go at me. Your singer can't sing"? No, because he's bigger than that. He knows that their music isn't meant to be partying. You can't roll down a ramp to Pearl Jam. You can't drive on stage on a motorcycle. You can't spin round in a tombola cage.
Person, that's, you know.
But it's not meant to be like that.
No.
You can't do that to. You couldn't do that to Lynyrd Skynyrd or Molly Hatchet. But it don't stop you partying.
Yeah, exactly.
That music is serious music. You can't revolve in a drum cage. You can't go on a roller coaster drum ride. You can't have flame towers blasted here, there, and everywhere. But it hits you where it matters. It makes you tap your feet. I remember Billy Gibbons once saying, Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top once said, "It ain't worth shit unless it makes you shuffle your feet."
Yep. And
and that's the truth. If you can't shuffle your feet or tap your foot to it, ain't worth shit.
And that's the perfect spot to end this on. If you like what we're doing here, hit the like button and hit the subscribe. Leave a comment for Rocky. I'm sure he'll be poking around. Thank you very much, my friend. This has been Andy Thunders and the legend Rocky Shades.
It's always a pleasure. You know that.
Oh, yeah. All right.
We'll catch each other soon.
Absolutely.
I'm off to bed now.
Cheers.